Hey, what it do? I'm bringing you all another whiteboard special, and today we're talking about a very important topic that you do not want to miss. I'm going over trade schools, and mainly what I'm discussing is whether it makes sense for you to go to trade school first before you find a job, or whether you find that construction job first and then go into trade school afterwards. This is a very important topic. You should really pay attention to this. Mainly because I noticed that a lot of the comments that I get on my videos are people talking about that they're trying to find a trade school to get into, but they haven't even found a job yet. And this is why I want to bring it up, because in my personal experience and the way that I've worked my career, I found it to be more important that you get the job first and then you go to school afterwards. It's the complete opposite of how somebody would treat a normal like college education. You're going to go to college first. You're going to get your 2-year, 4-year, 6-year degree, and then you're going to go into the job market and try to find something, hopefully if you can. Me personally, I think it is the complete opposite in the construction field. And I'm going to break it down. We're going to go over numbers. I'm going to explain why. So let's get into it, all right? First and foremost, you guys know I preach getting into construction over going the conventional college route. The number one factor you can look at on here, right, with my fancy little numbers and my drawings on here, right, the typical average 4-year college in America, for 4 years, you're going to pay anywhere from $26,000 to $104,000 a year. It's insane. And can you imagine, there's people out there that pay that $100,000 to go to school for 4 years, cannot find a job once they get out. Or they find a job and they don't even like it. You got all this debt, so you're completely stuck in it at that point. Compare that to the cost of a trade school. So for 4 years schooling, you're at $5,000 to $15,000. Keep in mind, none of these there's no grants, no sponsorships. This is you coming out of pocket for this, all right? The caveat to it, though, this is my personal experience. I got to go to trade school for free. My school here, I went to a very well-known school. It's called Associated Builders and Contractors. It would have been it was either $2,000 or $2,200 a year for 4 years. So you figure I would have spent anywhere from $8,000 to $8,800. I was lucky enough to have my boss present me with the option to where if I passed my schooling, I would pay for it up front, and each year that I passed, they would then cover for me. So I essentially got to go and get a 4-year plumbing apprenticeship for free, if you want to call it that. And that's what trade school is. It's an apprenticeship. It's gonna teach you a lot, mostly book learning. You're gonna learn a lot of code, and what it's gonna do is it's gonna set you up to get what's called your journeyman's license. This is extremely important, and honestly, it's needed if you are going the union route or working for bigger companies. Union specifically, from my understanding, they are almost always going to put you through school. Now, whether they pay for it or not, that I don't know, or if, somehow they give you a discount on it, that they might do. I myself, I never worked in the union. I always did regular residential service work. The company I was working for at the time, they put me through school just to get the knowledge. They wanted me to learn more code and better practices per se. So what school is going to teach you, keep in mind this is all from my experience. So what school is going to teach you is, like I said, code and proper piping methods. So they're going to teach you how to put things together and okay, can you put a toilet in this location, or if you have this type of job, where can you run your pipes? What is allowable? There's also a lot of math involved. What else did we go over? We went over gas lines, water lines, all that stuff. It's by the book, which is great because when you're just in the field and you haven't done the schooling, you're just trying to figure out everything off the top of your head. And you don't necessarily know the code unless you know where to find it in the book. So the school is going to teach you about the code book and general business, not business, but general plumbing practices. which you need to have. If you want to be at the top of your game, you need to have this. Now, my job, they did not send me for the idea of me getting my license, which that's where most people go to the school for. They're going to go there under an apprenticeship program where you have to track your OGT, which is your on-the-job training. You got to track all your hours, everything that you're doing. And at the end of the 4 years, you're allowed to take a state test and get your journeyman's license once you pass that. Me personally, I always wanted to own my own business. It's a completely different license that does not require the schooling whatsoever. But I noticed from the comments that I'm getting from you guys, you're talking about, hey, I'm trying to find a job, I'm trying to find a school to go to, what type of program should I get involved in? And then when I ask you, like, well, who are you working for? Have you talked to your boss? What type of program they're trying to set you up with? And you guys don't have a job yet in the construction field. And I think you're doing it completely backwards. And I think people have the misunderstanding that you have to find the plumbing school first. Just like somebody would with college. You would go to college first, and then you find the job afterwards. I think you're doing it completely backwards, which you should be looking at job first or school first. You should be looking at the job first. Because think about it. If you go to school first, which you would be able to, if you just went to ABC or Associated Builders and Contractors, you could sign up with them. You could start their plumbing program. You're going to have to pay for it out of pocket, though, right? And it doesn't guarantee you a job. Just because you went to plumbing school, you don't have any actual in-field experience, which is what these companies are going to be looking for. So it's a zero-sum game for you. What you need to do is you need to find that job first, whether you decide to go with union or non-union, small company, big company, doesn't matter. And for all you know, you get that job first, and then your boss or whoever your manager is going to present the schooling option for you. They might do this. Smaller companies, though, they might not. It might be up to you to present to it. And then at that point, you can make an argument to them to pay for your schooling, because then once you get through that apprenticeship program and you go through the schooling and you do your 4 years, you can then get your journeyman's license. And from there, you become a more beneficial asset to the company. So like here in Ohio, and this is why it's more common with unions to send you to trade school, is because they have to have a certain amount of people on their team that actually hold a journeyman's license. And that comes into play for some of the jobs that they do or some of the like government contracts that they're going after. You have to have a certain amount of licensed people underneath of your company. For smaller service-based businesses, that's not a thing at all. Not even a thing. And if you're considering going into business for yourself, at least in Ohio, I don't know how it is for the rest of the states, you don't need to go to school. It's all about just how many years you've been working. Like I had to work 5 consecutive years, and then I had to show permits that the company pulled and that kind of stuff. They never asked about schooling, never required it. That's only required for like a journeyman's and a master license. Which at that point, if you're thinking about business, those are not beneficial to you really, because you can't pull permits with it. It's not really going to help you. But every state is different, so you, like I always tell you guys, you got to make sure you check with your state board. So think about it from a cost perspective. Cost-wise, think about college versus trade school. Judging by the numbers, it makes absolute sense to go to a trade school. But get the job first. That's the biggest thing with it. You got to find the job first. And it's very easy to find a job. They're everywhere. Like, I know I post my jobs on Indeed. You can go to Monster. There's plenty of other sites you can go to. And honestly, I'll probably be doing a video where I break that down and actually showing you guys like where you can find jobs at, how to apply, all that good stuff. But to get back into it, trade school. Boom. This is the butter of it all, right? You need to get the job first. And if you want to work union, that's where don't even think about the school, because they're going to put you through it. Your focus should be getting into a local plumbing union, and you can actually go to my website, plumbersociety.com. I'll post it in the link or in the description. You can go to plumbersociety.com, and I've got a list on there of all the major local unions. You can search it by your state. and you can find which unions are local to you. And I also put on there all the vocational schools that I could find for your city and for your state, essentially. So you could run through there and try to figure out what route you want to go with that, what type of school you want to go to, yada yada. You can even present that to your boss for what type of school you'd rather go to, whether it be like Associated Builders and Contractors, or if you want to go to like a community college. There's plenty of those that offer plumbing and trade programs. Mine is specifically for plumbing. So if you're on here and maybe you're looking at electrical or HVAC or carpentry, boiler work, that kind of stuff, this might not apply to you. This is generally for plumbers. But the school I went to, they had an electrical program, they had a carpentry program, and they had a boiler program. I don't think they had roofing yet when I was there. But yeah, electrical, carpentry, your main ones, your big bread and butter ones, those are the ones that are in there. All right. On the job training versus the classroom. I kind of started touching on this a little bit. So going to school is not going to teach you everything that you need to know. What school is going to teach you is by the book. You're going to learn codes. You're going to learn plumbing math. You're going to learn about like how to measure for volume and how to size pipe. And let's say if you're running a pipe in a ceiling, how many hangers you have to have on there and how many feet. What size piping you got to use for a bathroom or toilets or a certain setup. Let's say if you're building a house that's got multiple bathrooms in it, what size pipe do you need to have in there? So they're going to teach you the book, the principles, and the codes that go into that stuff. That was a lot of what my 4 years was. And you pretty much, like your first year, you start off with the basics, and each year they get a little bit more in depth into that code book. And by the fourth year, you're real deep into the codes. You're learning a lot of the plumbing math and some of the more difficult things. But what it doesn't teach you is what you think about how to put this. It teaches you how to do stuff in a manner, but what it doesn't teach you is like, let's say you get on a job and you got to troubleshoot something, right? Or you got to figure out like how to fix a water heater, or even like maybe you got a pipe leaking in the ceiling, and you have to have that creativity in your mind already to know like, where to cut that pipe and how to get it out. School is not going to teach you that part of it. The school is going to teach you the code aspect of it. So when you're doing that work, you're going to know like code-wise, like, okay, I can put this type of pipe in. I can drill a hole this big through this piece of wood to get my new pipe in. I know if I'm putting a toilet over here, what size pipe I got to use and how I got to get it over to the main. That's what the school is going to teach you. But once you're actually in the field, it's not that a lot of that stuff goes out the window, but it's just, it's like yin and yang. The real world, your on-the-job training is like a whole separate classroom from the actual trade school classroom. So the school is important from the trade aspect, but if you're like the people that are in my comments and you're looking for the school first before you even get the job, you're just going to be book smart. But if they put you in a van or tell you to, go replace a sump pump, you're not going to know what to do. Versus you get started with the company, you get some actual infield training so you understand some of the infield principles. Then you go to school, and then what happens is it all starts coming together because you've seen stuff in the field, and at the same time that you're going to school, you're still actively in the field doing stuff. So it's like you're going to expound on that a lot in class. You're going to come across things in the book. You're like, oh, I've seen this. I've done something similar. Now I know what exactly I need to do the next time. I know what size pipe I need to use. I know how I need to run my hangers. That was one of the nice things for me because I already had, I think I was probably working about 4 years, probably about 3-ish at the time, before I even started going to school. So I had a lot of infield experience, and it actually helped me out a lot in class because I knew how to do a lot of stuff, and then the class taught me the actual principles and the code, and it allowed me to pass my inspections and to be a little bit more efficient at my job. But the school is not going to teach you the creativity side of it. It's not going to really teach you how to troubleshoot. But there again, I would say it probably also depends on the type of school that you go to. My school was just by the book. They just teach you the code book, general practices, that kind of stuff. They're not going to teach, generally, they're not going to teach you like how to run a business either. You would have to take separate business courses for that. Which that's also where I come into play with this. I've got both sides of this. I did a 4-year college degree, and I did 4 years of plumbing school. So I know what both of them are like. Which has made my job considerably easier. But unlike traditional school where you finish high school, you go to college, then you look for a job, complete opposite. If you're wanting to be a plumber, you need to find the job first. Then you talk to your boss or the owner about going to school. And that's going to make you a better employee. And the nice thing about school is, too, once you have that schooling down and you've got that general knowledge, you can request better pay, especially union. So if you think about it, like starting in the union, you're probably like $35,000-ish a year or something like that. By the time you go through a 4-year school and you actually pass and get your journeyman's license, you're easily double that, if not more, depending on what market you're into. I'm considering my market, which is Ohio. We're a little bit lower on the pay scale just because cheaper cost of living out here versus if you're somewhere like New York City or out in California, maybe down south, like in the Sunbelt areas where that cost of living is higher, you're going to make more generally just because of that offset. I think the final thing I want to touch on is, when does going to trade school make sense for you? Because it's not that it's not for everybody, but you taking that time to go to school might not make a whole lot of sense for you. If you want the education, if you want to know how to run through your code book, if you want to become a better employee at the company and a better overall plumber, trade school 100% makes sense to go to. It doesn't mean you have to do the apprentice side of it, but you should. I would say if your idea is you're fine with working for people and you don't want to own your own business, that's where you should go to the trade school. You should do the full entire apprenticeship program where you have to track your on-the-job training, the type of jobs that you're doing, and they're going to let you know. They're going to give you the books and all that stuff to fill out year by year. But you want to work for somebody, you want to get your journeyman's or your master's license, that's when school makes sense. If you're like me where you want to own your own business one day, the school makes sense to a degree still, but the apprenticeship program probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It's not really going to benefit you to get your journeyman's license and to go through the apprenticeship program and keep up every year on it with all your hours and filling it out with the state. Is not necessarily going to take you any higher. And the school, like I said, the school itself, check with your state whether they require you to have the schooling. But like here in Ohio, I have to go to school to get my business license. It's a totally separate ordeal where you just have to have on-the-job training. I had to have 5 years of just in the field working under a plumbing company that had their license. That's what you have to decide for yourself. And maybe you don't know yet. If you don't know whether you want to have your own business or if you're fine with just working for somebody, go to school. Especially if you can talk your job into paying for you to go to school, do it. It's free education at that point. And honestly, even at $5,000 to $15,000 for 4 years, this isn't per year. This is over the 4 years. This is probably what you're going to pay. That's not a terrible investment at all, because your job security is pretty much at 100%. There is such a low amount of tradesmen and plumbers out there that you could spend that $5,000 to $15,000 and you're pretty much guaranteed 100% of a job placement. But that's where it comes into play. Get the job first, then go to school. Because if you go to school first, that doesn't guarantee you the job just because you've got some schooling in you. Get the job first, start at the bottom, have them send you to school, work your way up, get that pay increase along the entire way. Versus you go to college for 4 years, You spend, let's say on the low end, you spend that $26,000. You're not guaranteed a job. You might just went into debt for a philosophy degree or arts degree, or maybe you thought you wanted to be a teacher or something. You spent $26,000 at a college for a job that, one, if you could find it, or two, that maybe you're only making $35,000 or $40,000 a year. So you think $26,000 for a $35,000 job, $5,000 to $15,000 for a job where on average you're going to make $60,000 to $65,000 a year. That's average middle of the run plumbers in America. 5 to 15 for schooling, you're going to make $65,000 on average. By the time you finish that 4 years, guaranteed you're going to be at that $60,000, $65,000 mark, if not considerably higher. I know guys who, after their 4 years of being a plumber, they're top of their game, good salespeople, they're close to $100,000, if not over it. Think about that trade-off. What are you going to do with college for $104,000 or even $26,000 and find a job that's going to pay you $60,000, $80,000, $100,000? You know, the top 3% of plumbers, with or without school, they're making over $250,000 a year. That is a no-brainer trade-off to pay that $5,000 to $15,000 for that kind of money to bring in. And like I said, these companies are hurting so bad for plumbers nowadays anyways. That's just a business write-off for them. I guarantee you they got no problem paying that kind of money just to send you to school for you, because you're going to have a better education, you're going to be better at your job, you're going to know a lot more than the guys that didn't go to school, which in turn for the company, you're better for their customers, so you can make the company more money. That's why I tell you got to talk to your boss about it, and you got to play that game right. And you got to let them know, like, hey, you know, if they're initially not trying to pay for it, it's like, look, dude, front me to go to school, I'll pay the first year, right? This is what I did with my boss. I'll pay the first year, and then what happens is, if I pass that year, you pay for it. The next year comes, I pay for it, I pass, then you pay for it. You pass your 4 years, you're still with the same company, you're still learning. And so you haven't paid for any schooling, yet you've got 4 years of education ahead of you. And now you can ask your boss for more money, because you can either go get your journeyman's license, and they can do government contracting jobs, or, you know, bigger projects where they can work for people that require that kind of stuff. And then you can get more pay. It makes sense. It makes total, complete sense. What else I want to touch on about that? Really, I think that was about it. There was one other thing I think I wanted to talk about. It's gonna come to my mind as soon as I shut this video down. It's late. I'm not gonna lie. It's been a long weekend. Yeah. So, like I said, to wrap this up, trade school. If you're thinking about becoming a plumber and you haven't got a job yet, and you're considering school, you can find the school, but get the job first. Get the plumbing job first. Where's my magic marker so I can make sure you guys are understanding this? Job first. This is what you want. Get the job first, then focus on the school. Oh, that was the other thing I wanted to talk about too. So, like, unlike college, so like for me when I was at school, when I went to college, it's almost like high school in a way, or like regular school, but not as many hours. I had 4 days of classes. So Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, I had classes each of those days. The plumbing school that I went to was like 4 hours. It was either 3 or 4 hours, 1 day a week. Depending on the school that you go to, they might break it down different. You might have to go 4 days and, you know, do an hour each day or a couple hours each day. But I think most of them are set up where you're only going like 1 or 2 days a week, because they know if you're in a vocational program, you probably have a full-time job. Whereas college, they don't expect you to have a full-time job. Like, college is your full-time job at that point, right? But at a vocational school, they're expecting you to have a job. They're expecting you to be sponsored by a company. So you have less schooling than that too. You're not going to school for as long. So you don't have to think about it as like, oh man, I've got to go full-time to a plumbing school and then work full-time on top of it. Like, I'm not going to have time to do anything. I'm not going to have time for dinner. If anything, like, it actually affected my paycheck just a little bit because I would have to get out of work early on the days that I went to school, but it's one day a week. You know, you make up for it on other days. So that's one of the most important things to understand about trade school. It's not the same amount of time as college. Yeah, it's 4 years, but your amount of time that you're in school hour-wise is considerably less. I think when I was filling out my on-the-job training, I think it was 100 hours a year. Might have been, yeah, it was probably around 100 to 120 hours a year. Versus you figure college, you're quadruple that. So you figure you're 600-800 hours a year for college for a regular 4-year degree. And so that's all I want to touch on with that. Just make sure if you're watching this, get the job first. Go after the job. Go work for a company. Try to get them to pay for your school. And honestly, if you work for a company and you're in a bigger city too, and they don't want to pay for you to go to school, go find another job where they'll pay for it. Because they truly don't value you then. If either they're small to the point where they don't have the money to afford it, or if they can't afford it, they just don't value the education as well. And for you, you got to do what's best for you at the end of the day and try to make as much money as you can, right? So, well, not that it should drive you, but obviously money is very important. That's why a lot of us do what we do. That's why I talk about the trades too, because you can make a considerable more amount of money going to the trades than going to college and just getting a regular ass job after paying all that debt, right? Per usual, drop me some comments, hit me some likes. I always like seeing that stuff on there, but definitely drop the comments. Y'all know I respond to them. I'd love to get some feedback on this. If you guys want me to expound on anything else regarding the trade schools, like maybe what my experience was like in there or anything like that, I could break down another video with that. But at this time, that's what I'm keeping it to. So, appreciate you sticking around watching the video. Use this information. If you got questions, hit me up. Y'all got my info. I'm going to post the link for my website, plumbersociety.com, to where you can find trade schools in your area. You can also find... What's the other one? I got a couple ones on there. No, it's mostly trades. You can find vocational programs is what it is. So you can go through ABC, some of the community colleges. I went through a list a long time ago and put all that on the website. So it's state by state, and then you can look through your city and figure out what trade school you have out there. So if you're already working as a plumber, you can kind of figure out what schools are in your area, present it to your boss, and try to go there. And honestly, too, you could always come out of pocket for the money, too. If your job was not willing to pay for you to do that, maybe you want that education, take yourself to it. Your boss going to be mad at you like, oh, I got to let you out early because you want to go to school? Fuck them. Alright, y'all. I've had enough. Take it easy. Really?